She's out there.
Yep. Okay, we're live. All right. Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, April 27th, 2022 at 6:45 p.m. We are in the Brecksville Brovey Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as an indicated agenda item. Prior to the regular meeting, the board will meet in executive session for the consideration of the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official per board policy 0166, executive session item A. This meeting will be live streamed via YouTube and will also be recorded for later viewing. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where all recordings are posted. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1C, roll call. Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen? Yes. Item 2A, enter into executive session. Resolve to enter into executive session for the consideration of the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official per board policy 0166 item A. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call. Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack? Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen? Yes, we'll be in executive session, hopefully for about 15 minutes, and we'll reconvene with our regular meeting. Roll call. All right, we're on item 1C, resolve to exit executive session. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call. Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen? Yes. Moving on to item 3, reconvene following executive session. Item 4 is president's announcements. I have none. Moving on to item 5 is superintendent's announcements. And we'll give Joelle just a minute here as we're bringing some people in the room, and I'll turn it over to her. All right, Joelle, we're on item 5, which is your superintendent's announcements.
So we were, you're on mute. Okay. None of our middle school kids are here.
Okay. So this will be an abbreviated award session.
Yes, we're texting and the kids are, so. They're not here. Okay. If they come in, we'll keep going. So we're going to talk about adding parking spaces to the campus. So as you know, we have been working on a full-fledged comprehensive transportation plan for next school year as we're aligning the middle school and high school start times. Obviously, we're going to have a lot more people on this campus at one time, along with buses. And so we've been developing a pretty comprehensive transportation plan for this campus. We have involved both safety forces. They have been involved in the planning of this. And so we had a rendition of how we were going to put the buses in between the middle school and the high school, so both middle school and high school kids could access the bus at the same time. Bus drivers were a little concerned that the buses were too close together in that rendition, so we problem solved with our safety forces, and we came up with another plan that spread the buses out a little bit more in the same location, but gave a little bit more room for the buses, that bus drivers felt much more comfortable with this rendition. In that rendition, though, we lose 105 parking spaces that are currently in our junior lot. And so we didn't want to limit the number of parking passes that we offer our high school kids. We wanted to provide our juniors and seniors with the same opportunities that other juniors and seniors have had to still drive to school. So we had to figure out a way that we could replace those 105 spots that we were going to be losing to the new bus lineup in the high school parking lot. So Craig, I don't know if you want to pull up a map. So we had a couple ideas of where a parking lot could go or where we could add some additional spaces, and what we landed on to be the most cost effective due to just the topography of the land in this area is right outside our stadium, to recreate that parking, those 105 parking spaces that we're losing, to recreate them there, which is on the east side of the football fields. It's on our current practice field. It would take up part of our current practice field. That would then become the junior lot, and they would enter. So we have all of our seniors and our juniors entering through the auditorium door. This also provides us additional much needed parking when we have events at the stadium, as the people are parking all the way down to the board office and all the way in front of the middle school, that it will allow some more parking to get closer to the venue should we create these parking spots here for our juniors. This also helps very much with being able to completely separate bus and car traffic. As part of this plan, we have for the fall, and again, this is all a mass communication that will be going out to parents. We have identified certain entryways. So there's currently 3 entryways onto this campus, and we have identified those entryways for very specific uses, and there'll be signage up next year and everything. But by putting the junior lot back here, it's the safest way, because there will not be buses that go back here at all. The buses will stay, in that lot between the middle school and the high school, and it allows the cars to get in and out of the designated high school drive off of this campus. So this is what we're proposing to make up those spaces. It also allows kids who are riding the bus to be walking down the hill, and all the kids who are driving to school to come out the auditorium doors, to really help separate how we've designed our exit plan and entry plan for the next school year. I know there was some concern about taking up part of our practice field. We have talked to all of the coaches and the athletic directors that would be involved that use that field. All understand we have made up that space, in not only because we're not taking the whole practice field, so there's still some areas that we can use over there. The field that is above the middle school in between the high school, that will be used as a practice field. Currently, our youth football program uses the field that's right outside this building, which we will now designate for high school and middle school use. And because Hilton is closing and we have that giant field that is along the side of the building, we will move youth football down to that facility. So we have made up the space that we would be taking away from a practice field by adding the parking lot here.
I have a question for replacing the.
Do you want to put your mic on, Kathleen?
I have a question about replacing the field. So we have Stadium Drive, correct? And they can have practice there, but it's my understanding that they're not allowed to use the locker room. Is that something we can fix if we agreed to clean it? I thought that was possibly part of the agreement, but the Hilton only allows for one team, like 30 players down there. So is it possible just to move them to Stadium before the bus route starts? Like take that bus driver, have them take them down the Stadium Drive for practice, and then have those locker rooms available with the bathroom cleaned.
So originally, our athletic director wanted to move all of 8th grade football down there to store their materials, and that was not something that the city wanted to do. To practice down there, it's not a problem. We just need to come up with what that schedule would be. So that is another opportunity to use that. I don't know if we'd be able to use the facility, because I don't know what their timeline is in terms of making improvements on that property.
Okay. Because I know we're allowed to use it, but then they put porta potties or something down there for them to use during the week. So, I mean, it would be ideal that we were allowed to use the lockers,
Sure.
even if we agreed to clean them during that time period. Maybe but they're usable because they use them on the weekends, the locker rooms. So just a suggestion from people, who are in the athletic department that I heard.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it sounds like we have a number of field options, and it might just be a little bit of a chess match to move teams around to settle in. Also, down the road, although the board has not rendered any final decision, we do have in front of us what we're going to do with Hilton. The last time the board discussed Hilton, we talked about retaining it, at least all of the land, because it's part of our main campus. So it makes sense to hold on to all that land, but we still have an old building on there. And the original plan back when we went to the voters for a bond issue to construct a new school and offline 4 of our old schools was to have money included in the bond to raise the old buildings. That was the original, at least the original forethought. Central School obviously is now in control of Brecksville, as we made the collaborative arrangement to trade for land up at Blossom, and they built their field house in our new elementary. So Central School is now the city of Brecksville's responsibility, which is great. We have an arrangement right now, an agreement with the city of Brecksville for them to take both Chippewa and Highland and market those properties to developers. And if we can all agree on something good, then that property will be transitioned, and hopefully the school district doesn't have to get involved in bringing those buildings down. But at the end, we still have Hilton. And so in the end, if the board decides to take Hilton down, that would, I would think, create additional green space on our campus. So back to this whole parking lot situation and the displacement of some of our athletic teams, we do have a lot of fields kind of throughout our campus with potentially additional space coming online. So from an athletic standpoint, it sounds like we have options that may even grow over time.
And I have a quick question. Are we confident that we're not creating any drainage or flooding issues by adding more non-permeable surfaces? And then what's the timing of when that could get done?
Yeah, so great questions. So your first question, no, I think that is one of the reasons why this was the most cost effective, because it has the least impact. It was the flattest. There's not a lot of drainage. The other option that we were looking at was continuation of the honors lot, which is behind like the band room, and because we have some space to go, actually south of that field. That was going to be a lot more costly because of those issues that you just described. And what your second question was?
Oh, timing.
Timing. So and I'm gonna let Craig explain kind of the finances behind it, but we are going to run this through our construction project right now, so that because we have those contracts in place, that we can, in theory, get this done by the time we need it in the fall.
So that was my follow-up question. If this is the proposed plan, is there any likelihood that the junior drivers would be impacted by an incomplete project at the start of school?
We're hoping not. We're having, there is work being done on this right now, because this is not a building. We don't have to bid out this work, and that is why we're able to run it through our project.
Yeah, and just to expand on that for maybe people that are dialing in. So the new elementary school that we're building now is being constructed by Shook Construction. They are under contract with our district as construction managers at risk. And the bond money that the voters passed is being used to construct that field. And back when we did the bond issue, we targeted an amount that could allow us to not only build a new school, but have some additional capacity left to take care of some of the other permanent improvement needs in our district. And that project financially has gone very well, because we still have that cushion, and all signs point to a pretty healthy cushion at the end, so that we've already leveraged some of that money for PI needs. Craig's probably going to talk a little bit more about this, leveraging even more of those funds, additional funds for this parking lot. But from a timing standpoint, a traditional project that we would do on our own, we would go out to bid. you need a little bit more time and runway to be able to get yourself ready to go out to bid and collect the bids. But if we leverage Shook underneath the construction manager at risk arrangement, they're already in place. So we wouldn't be necessarily going out to bid in a general standpoint. We would just leverage Shook and use the same bond funds, which we were planning on using anyway, potentially for this. What that buys us is it buys us speed. It would allow us to get this going quickly. And I know there was some conversations with Shook. They think that this is something that we can still accomplish by the end of the summer. With that, maybe I'll let Craig expound upon some of the financials and anything else.
I don't think there's anything to mention. No, it's free. So no, it seems to be our best option to do that within the project currently. And the reason why this is not a board actionable item currently is because we don't know what will be left and whether it can actually be run under the contract of what's already in the project. If it cannot fit within those parameters, then you'd probably have a resolution for a change order in May for the amount of what this would cost. And again, we don't really know 100% what this will cost yet. We just have some ballparks. But once we have that information, we would then figure out what fits in the project, what doesn't fit in the current project, but there is still funds available, as Mark was talking about with that cushion that was built into the bond when it was passed. So that's tentatively the plan. Shook is definitely the fastest approach to do that. They're working on it now to give us a much better estimate of what this would cost. And then we'll kind of have to have further discussions. But our goal was to see, before we get too far into this, whether this is a desire and would be supported by the board, because we would potentially need the board action at the end of the day.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, so again, just to recap, there are funds available to accomplish this. And so next steps is we're going to work with Shook and TDA to figure out, does this fit underneath the contract that we have with them that are for the construction of our new building? If so, this could be a change order to it. Probably almost either way, we're likely going to need to have some board action to say, yes, we approve this. But from what we spoke the other day, Craig, you mentioned that the process of the board having to give some type of resolution and approval won't hold up this process, though. Shook can go forward with getting kind of the ducks aligned to get this project underway, and we can come back in May and take whatever final action is needed to make this a thing.
Yeah. And it's no different than what we did with the security vestibule at the middle school. It was run through the project. We did it through the project. It didn't require separate board action unless it was, so it's the same type of project. So
right.
With under our construction manager.
Can I just add, or are we done with this conversation? Yes. We're done. No, I can make a comment.
Sure. Well, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. So if you have something else on this.
Well, my only thing is we don't need to take action tonight, but I guess my concerns, and we need the parking spots. I guess I just need more information on prioritizing. We have a lot of facilities that need improvements. And I just, want to make sure that that things are not keep jumping the line. And I get that this is an immediate need, but there are concerns with needs at the high school, needs at the middle school. I just want to make sure that we're really looking at permanent improvements, that we're getting our priorities.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think that's a fair point. I think obviously this has become an elevated concern because it wasn't until recently when we did trial runs with our buses that we figured out we needed to configure our bus lineup in a way that's going to consume a number of our parking spots. And we know that all of our parking spots today are in use. And if we subtract 100 of them, we know we're going to be short 100, which would mean that you're either going to have more students taking the bus or carpooling, or there's going to be some pain because not everybody who wants to drive would be able to drive. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid point, but I guess, from a priority standpoint, what would be the impact if we did nothing?
some very upset parents and students. I guess I would also say that I think that from a permanent improvement perspective, at least since I've been here, I feel like we are moving at a much faster pace. Granted, some of that is because of the building project, but I think I keep Mr. Code's office very busy since I've been here, and there's been a backlog that's obviously we still know exists. And that, yes, that's something that the PI committee obviously discusses every time we meet, is how do we best address those priorities of how it aligns with funding.
And I guess I would also add on to just echo what Craig is saying. If you look back over the last, I'll say 3 to 4 years, we've actually made tremendous strides on our PI list. And that's partly due to a number of things. One of which is that, as I mentioned earlier, the bond issue that we passed had money carved out to do some PI improvements. And we have leveraged some of that. Security vestibule at the middle school was one of those projects. And we do intend to have additional funds available to continue to work on our list. So that's been a huge thing. The other thing is that from a pandemic standpoint, we've received quite an infusion of federal funds that we've been able to leverage to address some of our ventilation situations, so
Yeah.
HVAC. So, and those were on our list. So, when you look at where our list was and what we've been able to take off of the list over the last 3 or 4 years, we've made a lot of significant strides. And the third item that I'll throw on there is, Craig has also been more creative in looking at our entire PI budget and figuring out how do we get more mileage out of our PI resources. So those 3 things, the bond issue, the more efficient use of our whole PI dollars, and a lot of the federal funds that have flowed to us because of the pandemic have allowed us to make great improvements. And, keep in mind, we've offline 4 old buildings and we're bringing online a brand new building, which should have no maintenance to it, hopefully for the next 5 to 10 years. So, that's also going to free up some PI resources for the middle school, high school, and the greater campus. So from a PI standpoint, we actually are in a pretty good situation.
Well, and the genesis for needing this parking lot actually goes back to it's because we wanted the high school kids to start later, and we still wanted to be able to provide busing to the high school students, and we problem solved this all last fall. And the only way to do that was to combine the middle school and the high school start times. So really, this all goes back to pushing the high school start time back. So that's all.
Well, thank you for the context. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's time for us to recap in a future meeting where we're at with PI. I think that would be helpful to board members. I know that for my decision making, I'd like to see where we're at, what's on that list, what has been knocked off. And that would be probably helpful to Mrs. Kwiatkowski as well, when we're making these decisions, because I do feel like there was things that were taken care of that I'm not sure what was. So just like our academic discussion that's coming up in a month or so, maybe this is part of that whole strategic plan idea. Here's where we're at with our facilities.
Yeah, and PI we usually have some type of a recap at the board level, on somewhat of a regular cycle. So yeah, it will be when we tee it back up, and I don't know which meeting that makes sense to do that at. We can see a lot. I mean, and if you look this summer, you're going to see quite a lot of activity going on this summer. I mean, a lot of activity. So we have a lot of initiatives underway this summer. So come next fall, we should move the chains quite a bit on the PI front.
And lastly, it's just our monthly report on the building project that is very quickly coming to an end. We're still on time and on budget with that, and expect to get keys here to the building, or first occupancy here at the end of May, beginning of June. So we're very excited about that, and starting our community tours the first week in August. So.
Very good. Moving on to item 6, board committee reports, financial liaison, audit committee, Kathleen and myself. We don't have anything new to report. That's usually just an annual once a year audit. Permanent improvement, Helen.
The Permanent Improvement Committee met on April 5th. And there is a lot going on at the moment with respect to projects, the projects that we just talked about, the new school. There is a lot of high school roof replacement going on between June and August of this year. Not particularly exciting, but unfortunately very necessary. The track resurfacing is scheduled to start in early May and be done by the end of July. The tennis courts are supposed to be, that project has started. It's supposed to be done by August. And the baseball, softball field ADA parking project is just about done. As of earlier this month, you were still waiting on some punch list items. Is that still the case?
I mean, the weather's not been conducive to change.
Okay. So it's just about complete. And then some of the items that were discussed for 2023, but are just under discussion, and certainly other things can be added to the discussion for the next list of projects are replacing high school cafeteria tables, replacing the middle school and the high school PAs, replacing carpet, flooring, and stair tread at the high school, working on the high school gym area storage, working on another, unfortunately boring but necessary item is some of the masonry at the high school. And I know that, another thing that could be added to this list would be completing some of the the middle school auditorium renovations. So maybe we need to I shouldn't say maybe, we usually meet in the fall, so we can, discuss all those items coming up here in a few months. But there's a number of projects going on at the moment that are going to keep Mr. Code busy all summer.
Mrs. Kramer, is improvement with the high school bathrooms? Because I've been getting a lot of emails about the bathrooms being shut down at the high school, and some children have had to go home to use bathrooms. Are you aware of the, no?
So
they
the only
broken?
bathrooms I know that are shut down at the high school are the ones over between the main gym, the auxiliary gym, and that's for security purposes. I
Okay,
don't know of any other restrooms that are closed.
they said that there's a couple of them and they've been closed since the beginning of school. No,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that.
okay. Could somebody look into that? I can send you the emails why, but they say there's more than just one. Thank you.
I think just to add on also, Ellen and myself had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Code and do a little tour around the high school and the middle school and see some of the improvements that have already been put in place, which again, HVAC and roofing and middle school alarm system, right? It's not necessarily glitzy, but it was good to see, including the high school security vestibule at I'm not high school, middle school security vestibule. So it's good to see, a lot of the progress that's been made around the district. So hopefully it continues. Board Policy Committee, Kathleen and Tish.
You have first read tonight on the policies that were discussed at our last meeting.
We are. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, item 7 is district committee reports, Transportation Appeals Committee. Myself, there have been no recent appeals. Cuyahoga Valley Career Center report. I see Mr. Goldbright in our audience, so stepping up to the podium and hear what's going on.
I think I'm on, correct? Good evening, all. It's a pleasure to see everyone today. Hope you're all enjoying this lovely spring weather. Just a couple of quick things to report, starting in the adult education area. I think I've mentioned to you in the past, currently nursing is the primary pillar program over there. And the vision is to create 3 additional programs to support that adult education program. The decision has been made to move forward in the manufacturing technology area. So Mr. Mangus is beginning to explore that with staff to address any issues and get that moving with the hopes of launching that in the next school year. The CVCC hosted the Council on Occupational Education, my apologies, which is the body that handles any financial aid that we're allowed to offer to students also in the adult education program. We passed that with no problems. So just to convey that. And lastly, in the adult education area, as I'm sure you're aware, Intel's announcement of their commitment of $100 million for higher education. Mr. Mangus was invited to go to that announcement and has been currently assigned to work with Cleveland State and Case Western Reserve to explore experiential learning opportunities for high school and adult students.
That's fantastic.
Anyway, so I don't have any idea what that means, but it's exciting at this point in time, right? And it's technologically associated, so hopefully that will drive some interesting things. From a financial perspective, we're on very solid footing over there. No surprises. New 5-year forecast coming out next month. One small detail this summer, we'll be addressing the drive and going through getting the drive and the parking areas redone. That is coming in over the forecasted budget, but it's not a significant number. I'll dig into that a little bit more. And lastly, probably the most exciting thing, we're having a signing event for students that are going to full-time occupation. So similar to what my son went through when he signed to play baseball at the next level here at the high school. There'll be an event on May the 11th for any kids that are going to full-time occupation and also to the military. So all in all, everything continues to work pretty well over there. So just want to keep you abreast. Any questions or concerns that I need to address? Brittany?
I would like to be in attendance for the signing event if it's possible. Who should I reach out to for additional information? If
May
that's
11th,
fine?
I will get you that information. Make sure that you have that.
Thank you, sir.
Sure,
I have a question for clarification, actually.
please.
Your very first point, you're talking about they want the nursing program to kind of be it's a pillar.
It is currently the pillar.
So when you
Yes.
Talk about manufacturing, so is that another pillar?
That's the idea. Yes.
That- okay.
Currently, adult education is primarily funded through the nursing program.
Gotcha.
And so the idea is to see if we can't recreate at least 2 or 3 additional programs that would diversify that revenue stream and provide better education for the adults in the area. Okay,
Just a point of clarification, just because
please.
I try to send students, we are not running any summer programs over at CVCC. And I know you said it'd be a small amount. I know Polaris has a full load, and I understand it's because we're making improvements. And, you know.
They will be
it's just-
returned.
I
next year,
understand. It's
yeah.
just big with our parents to get them in the door. So that's why it matters. So it is significant, at least in our community, when every year that it's shut down. So,
Understood.
okay. And if you would relay that,
I'd be more than
5
happy to.
years is what it says on the website. It'll be.
That's been up there for a while, so I will get them to update the website on that.
Those programs are fantastic.
They are
So that's
fantastic.
why-
They are fantastic. But our robotics team is sponsoring a program this summer. I see as a fundraiser with 100 seats. Children don't have to be in this district. So that's a nice alternative that would have been at CVCC. So I encourage people to sign up for that robotics fundraiser as well. But
Thank you for pointing that out. I'll make sure
I
I,
appreciate that.
Sure.
Just as far as our district and Revere, that was one very important component, and independence, getting our parents to get their kids comfortable to get in there. So
Sure.
for some other districts, it might not be significant, but for here, it is.
very good.
So thank you.
My pleasure. Anything else? Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the update.
Thank you.
Jeff. All right, moving on, safety and security, Brittany and Tish.
Nothing at this time.
New, okay, schools foundation report. Brittany.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, PSO report, Ellen.
The last PSO council meeting was April 7th, and a number of PSO events coming up include Well, this is actually a district thank you lunch for the PSOs tomorrow at the high school media center. The PSO is sponsoring after prom, May 14th at Fun and Stuff. As of April 7th, they were still looking for volunteers. I'm not sure if they still are. The middle school hosted its first in-person book fair in 2 years, and apparently it was very successful financially. The Highland PSO has all kind of events coming up in May. May 6th, there's a multicultural day. May 27th, there's a closing celebration at the school. May 31st is field day. Chippewa and Hilton both had a number of Earth Week events planned for late April. Chippewa also had staff appreciation, has staff appreciation scheduled for the week of May 6th. They also have a closing event scheduled for May 27th, field day for May 31st. And Hilton also has staff appreciation scheduled for the second week of May. Thank you so much to the PSOs for hosting those. And there is an orchestra boosters announced that the final concert of the year is this coming Friday, April 29th at 7 p.m. It's commemorating the seniors, and many of the students are going to be performing their own compositions. The next PSO council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 5th.
Can I jump in? I'm sure that you'll probably report on this next month, but I volunteered at the middle school PSO fundraiser. Mr. Rings is here. This past weekend where they were raising funds through magic show given by Rick Smith Jr. It was incredibly well run. The PSO worked so hard. Mr. Riggs worked so hard on Saturday, his staff, everybody. It was just a top-notch event. I was so happy to be able to be part of it, and just kudos to those PSO presidents and everyone that volunteered. Mr. Rings, your staff, it was fantastic. So they raised a lot of money, over $20,000. 25, yeah, that's right, $25,000. Incredible.
For the middle
For the middle school,
auditorium.
for the auditorium project, yeah. So kudos to them.
Great. Other board member reports. Anyone else have anything?
I have a note about Kappa. Do you want me to save that for announcements, or do you want me to?
No, why don't you
Yeah.
go ahead and do it now?
Okay, great. So this week, Kappa is focused on health and wellness. So on Tuesday, there was a visit by Applewood Centers, who provides mental health services, to provide a stress and coping workshop to students during lunch and study halls. Thursday, there will be a cooking demonstration provided by University Hospitals. And then on Friday, they're holding a health and wellness fair. And then this weekend on Saturday, they'll be holding the drug, in concert with the city's drug take back. So community members can bring their unused or expired medications to the Brexville Horticultural Center between the hours of 10 and 2 on Saturday.
Great. Any other reports? Okay, moving on to item 8, treasurer's announcements. Turn it
I have a
over to
lot
Craig.
of them. I promise I'll go quickly. No, so it's actually been it was almost been 3 years since I was able to attend the OASBO Annual Treasurers Conference. So it was really nice to get back down to Columbus to be with colleagues, to kind of just refresh with a lot of educational stuff. One of my favorite nerd out sessions is actually, because my degree is actually in economics, not in finance or accounting. And so they have the chief economist come in from Stifel, and she is the most phenomenal speaker. And I'm probably the only person who is obsessed with going to it's like the keynote speaker, and she comes every year. And it was a good, it talks about the overall economy, what's happening with rates and unemployment and the recession, all of those things. So it was a good refresh to get down there for a couple of days. Leading to the next item, though, was a wellness update. And one of the presentations I went to was talking about wellness and staff and what we're going through, all this stuff, and coming out of hopefully the other side of COVID, and just how important it was. And then prior to going down, I had launched a survey out to the staff We've not spent our wellness dollars that we get every year from Medical Mutual for the past couple of years. I think most of that was due to the fact of what was going on with COVID. So we sent out a survey to staff members, and our plan for next year is going to be to create different spaces in each of the buildings. Probably it's based on the feedback, because some people have different preferences of whether their stress relief is through physical activity or through relaxation, massage, music, aromatherapy, those types of things. And it was an interesting split based on the staff. So we had about 200 people respond in the staff to give their opinions. So we're going to try to work on spaces in each of the buildings next year to hopefully help with some mental health, some stress relief, and stuff like that with our staff. So that'll be the plan, hopefully moving forward on a wellness update, because we were able to bank that money from Medical Mutual. So we're going to try to leverage those dollars to create some nice spaces in each of the buildings. Equal Level, I got to meet them as a vendor. They've been around for a little while, and I just wanted to kind of throw this out there in terms of what my next technology endeavor will be. I know everyone's probably cringing, but Equal Level is an add-on package that will integrate directly into eFinance Plus, and it's a relatively inexpensive software package. And what's great about it is when someone goes out, you basically have more of like a shopping cart, and you say, I need some Post-it notes. And so you put in Post-it notes, and you have all these different vendors like Amazon, Staples, or whatever. And so what it does is you can shop in one store. You can say, I want to buy all my stuff from Amazon. But then when you hit checkout, it price compares against 15 or 20 different vendors. And what's nice about it is that you don't have to then create different requisitions for all those different places. You just push a button, and then it integrates into the financial software to create the requisitions. It can even place the orders and do all of that stuff for you, which is nice. And so they actually estimate that you can save a boatload of money through comparative shopping. So that's one of the things we're going to work on maybe in the fall at rolling out, somewhere between fall and winter. After we get through, it's not a good time to do that right now, over the summer as we're crossing fiscal years. So that'll be coming. EMIS Crosscheck is also a technology kind of piece add-on that we used. As some of you know, EMIS is how we collect student data, and it's a very difficult process to understand. And Connect, our ITC, is now offering EMIS Crosscheck as a package to make it more user-friendly to decipher a lot of the data. And we're going to start rolling out to the building level so that they can start fixing a lot of the errors themselves and trying to have a better understanding on data, especially as we know the new funding formula is very driven by butts and seats, and we want to make sure all of our data is correct. So Leslie, our EMIS coordinator, has been using this for the last couple of weeks. She said it's phenomenal. It's finding a lot of little tiny nuances and errors that we're working through. And so that is something that we're employing as well to try to make sure that our data is being reported to correctly at the state level. Lastly, I am finishing up when I get back from vacation next week. It's mostly ready to go, but the forecast needs to be approved in May. So I'm just finishing up those different things. There's not a lot of changes to it so far. As I've been reporting monthly, things have been pretty consistent according to the forecast. And then lastly, we're doing some new procedures this year with budget prep and kind of digging more into the software. I know my principals are so excited, right, Todd? So they've got spreadsheets that they're filling out. It's a good time to do this because we have so many moving pieces this year with staff that are moving different buildings. And so we're tying all of that stuff to spreadsheets that we can then just upload right into the software to get a better picture of where we are with budget prep. So it's another module in the software that we're tending to use right now to hopefully make the process a little bit easier. And it's kind of a trial this year to go another step as we learn the software better. But so far, it's been pretty good so far.
The budget prep we use with the athletic department.
It's interesting you say that. Yes.
That they can't see what's in their budget after they've raised it.
So that's one of the areas that I'm working with Mark on and Megan. So they're in the process of putting those budget pieces together. I've encouraged them to reach out to the coaches because each of them have team accounts, and then they have their almost like a subset of within like the main athletic account for each of the sports. I've at least told them to make sure they're consulting with the team accounts to make sure that they're getting feedback because those are supposedly run by the coaches and what their potential revenues and expenditures are going to be and the things that they need or whatever. So I have been encouraging that from Mark. It is a beast of a project, but it's a direction that I do want them to work towards, and it may take some time to get there because I don't think they've been asked to do that in the past, or at least in the recent future, I guess, or recent past, sorry.
Does it give our like principals the opportunity to see into their budget? Could it give like our coaches the opportunity to see the budget from not, you know,
So it can't,
the admin level?
so we can't give them the coaches necessarily direct access into the system because of the way that we're regulated for security reasons through the ITC and how difficult that process is. I did just recently walk through a couple of the reporting mechanisms with Megan to show her how she can run reports and then just send them to the coaches. So I think that's something they're also working on for next year. So
Our
they'll at least,
principals see into it.
principals are users and they can see all of their stuff, yes. Yeah. Is it better than the last system so far, Todd? I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot. Yeah. Yeah.
Equal level is nice.
Do you guys use it?
Mhm.
So you know. That's it.
Great, thanks. Moving on to item 9, community communications, hearing of the public. Before I read this, is there anyone in the public that wishes to be heard? Seeing no one, I will dispense reading that, and we will move on to item 10, other board business. 10A, board committee discussions. So this is a continuation of the discussion we've had, I think, at our last couple of meetings already. So just to kind of frame this in, we have 2 sets of committees. We have board committees and we have district committees. And for many years, they were really treated the same for the most part. And then recently we learned that board committees actually have to operate under some sunshine law regulations that say you have to notice the meetings and you have to publish meeting minutes, which we've been doing this year. And then the question came up, well, should we live stream them? So that's what started all of this conversation. This is, I think, the 3rd time now we've talked about it because we've gotten some guidance from legal because there's various options in front of us. So one of the things that we found out, according to some legal guidance that we got, was right now we thought we had 3 board committees. And if you went back on our agenda item under item 6, you'd see the 3 board committees, which are permanent improvement, board policy, and financial audit. Our legal guidance said that the way we conducted our organizational meeting back in January, there's actually an additional 2 other committees that, based on how we manage them, could be considered board committee meetings, which is transportation appeals and safety and security. So we have 3 official board committee meetings and another 2 that look like they could be board committee meetings. And so the options that are in front of us right now that the board needs to talk about to see if we can figure out how we would like to go forward is, one is we could do nothing. We could leave them all the way they are. And we could, then we would also have to decide, for any transportation appeals and safety and security meetings, we would have to notice them and publish minutes. We would still be faced with the question of, do we live stream them or not? That would be one option. Another option would be to dissolve all of those board committee meetings. They could be reconstituted as district committee meetings, which the technical term is superintendent administrative committee. Those would take them out from underneath the requirements to notice them and publish minutes. What we could do, and this is what we talked about in our past meetings, is we could just hold those meetings, some of those meetings, if we want to make them more out in the open and live stream, we could put them on the front end of a board meeting, just call it a work session. So they would get noticed, they would have minutes, they would be live streamed, but we could just consider them or convert them into committee, district committees or superintendent administrative committees. So option 1 is leave them just the way they are. Option 2 would be dissolve all of them and reconstitute them as district committees, and we could decide to add that content into regular board meetings. Another option is just clean up the 2 committees that we just learned are considered board committees and dissolve those so that they're not board committees, and just leave the original 3, and we'd be faced with a similar situation. So That's what's in front of us right now is what would the board like to do? I'll share my view, which is I think dissolving all of the board committee meetings, all 5 of them, having them reconstituted as district committee meetings, and then follow through with what we talked about already, which there was alignment on, which is we'll take permanent improvement and policy and financial audit. And when we have those meetings, we'll just have them on the front end of a board meeting. So we'll just conduct those meetings with the entire board, and we'll do them on the front end as a board work session of a regular board meeting. So the public would get noticed, you would have minutes, and you would have live stream, and you would have recordings. And that would just be our commitment to say we're going to do those meetings as part of our regular board meetings.
And Mark, I think we're all pretty much in alignment with that. I mean, we've talked about it at our March meeting, and then it would really, go a long way to facilitate what Kathleen and Tish were just talking about earlier this evening, which is they need to be more like, they would be interested in being, more up to date on what's going on with like the PI committee. I'd be interested in being more, up to date and involved in what's going on with board policy. So if we just tack those on as work sessions, I think that, with respect to those 3 committees, which I think the financial liaison only meets once a year anyway. So, I mean, it sounds like we pretty much all agree on doing that moving forward and maybe starting it next school year, although that's not that far away since it's already the end of April. So, but I don't know that we actually need to do anything with those 3 committees that we just named.
No, you don't necessarily do. And you don't necessarily need to have them as a separate work session. It could just be that, at your regular meeting, this is your PI discussion meeting, or it's your, financial liaison. It could be part of your regular meeting. You could do them as a separate work session, but it wouldn't have to be to achieve the same goal. So the problem with keeping, because of the way how the board managed that back in January, with keeping safety and security and the transportation committee considered a board committee. Number one, we don't have a set schedule for transportation committees. Or transportation appeals. They come up whenever. And so, if we have to have a transportation appeal that's immediate because it might be a safety concern, how do you get that notice out in a timely manner and be able to record that? And there could be some sensitive information since you're talking about specific students. Same with safety and security. The way those meetings are designed on purpose are with our law enforcement. And sometimes there are things that we've discussed that are not subject to public record and would not be discussed in public and therefore would not be appropriate to have as part of a discussion as the public can view that meeting. So at least my recommendation would be to clean up possibly those 2 committees. If you want to leave the other 3 how they are, and we just change the manner in which we have those meetings, we can do that.
And I would just dovetail onto that since cleaning up those 2, because we never intended those to be board committee meetings. Apparently there was a procedural process we followed that, according to our lawyer, he believes that those became board committee meetings. Given that it's a resolution that we would have to pass and we would put those 2 committees on it, why not just throw the other 3 and just put all 5 of them on if that's the direction that we're heading in? I would suggest maybe we consider just doing that. Maybe at our next meeting, we have a resolution that dissolves all 5 of these board committee meetings. Joelle can reconstitute them as superintendent administrative committees, and we don't, and any additional meetings that we would have of those 3, the remainder of this year and then going into next year, we just tether them into a regular board meeting so that all the content is available and is open to the public. Thoughts? Is everybody okay with that? Everybody
We'll write
all
the
right?
resolution accordingly and have it for you for the next meeting.
Okay, so next meeting we'll have a resolution with all 5 board committees. The resolution will dissolve them, and then you can reconstitute them just on, we don't need a board meeting for you to reconstitute them, right? So you can just reconstitute them however that's done. Okay, great. We'll move on to item B, board policy revisions, first read. This is just informational. We don't actually have to take any action on it. I think the actual drafts are going to be moved into the public. Yeah, portion. Right now, they're in an executive area for us to review, but those will get moved out into the public here shortly. Are there any questions or comments on any of the policies? This is a first read, so this will come back next meeting, and then we will vote on it next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, so you'll have second read and an adoption should you choose at the May meeting.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item C, the 2022 graduating class. Resolve to approve the Brexville Broadview Heights High School graduating class of 2022. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any comments, questions, or discussion? How many total students? The list wasn't numbered, so.
It's over 314.
Okay, great.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
And just so everyone's aware, we typically don't do this in April, but we had to move graduation up a week this year. So graduation actually falls before the May meeting when we typically approve the graduating list. And we caught it and had to put it on the April meeting so that we could get them approved prior to them receiving their diplomas on May 21st.
Very good.
Mhm.
Roll call?
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Dobson?
Yes. Moving on to item 11, superintendent's other business. We have A, resolve to approve the College Now MOU action. B, resolve to approve the Brexville Broadview Heights Organization of Support Staff MOU. C, resolve to approve foreign exchange student for the 2022-2023 school year. D, resolve to approve the updated administrative salary schedule effective August 1st, 2022 as attached. E, resolve to approve the FY22 annual cellular phone stipend list as attached. And F, resolve to approve superintendent's other business items A through E. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Joelle, do you want to just kind of walk us through and give us a brief highlight on each of these?
So College Now MOU is the outside organization we use every year to help parents with college applications, financial aid. They do presentations for us on financial aid and help any families that need assistance with FAFSA. It's just an annual contract. The organization, BBH Organization of Support Staff MOU, were to address some of the nuances of moving from 3 buildings down into 1 building to address some staffing issues that have come up that weren't addressed in the previous contract. Again, because it's a one-time thing, we had to come up with some language that we could all agree on to address some of those nuances that will be happening just this year. So that's what that is, already approved by the support staff. We have a foreign exchange student who would like to attend school next year, is sponsored by a reputable organization. And our administrative salary schedule, we just adjusted a couple of the responsibility factors to so that it mirrors what our organizational chart looks like now, having a head principal at the elementary school, something we didn't have currently. And the annual cellular phone reimbursement just adds our position of our maintenance supervisor that was not currently on there. And that is my short and quick update.
Yeah, and just the like the administrative salary schedule. So just as a reminder for everyone, we have 3 elementary buildings now, each one of them with a principal. And next year we will be in 1 elementary school building. So we will have a head principal. There will be many more students in that 1 building. So some of these pieces are to address the organizational and physical structure changes that we're seeing on our in our district. Any questions or comments?
Comments. So on my tenure on the board, we've had lengthy discussions about cellular stipends as you remember. I'm not for that at all. I believe that that's not something we should be having. That's part of what you have and it's functioning in your job. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to vote no on this because it's lumped in there, but I've been consistent with that I don't think we should be paying monthly stipends to administrators who are well compensated, in my opinion, for their cell phones.
Okay, fair enough. Any other comments or questions? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Mack,
No,
Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Moving on to item 12, superintendent's consent agenda. Item A, resolve to approve certified personnel recommendations. Item B, resolve to approve classified personnel recommendations. Item C, resolve to approve supplemental personnel recommendations. And item D, resolve to approve superintendent's consent items A through C. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Joelle, do you want to just walk us through any comments?
Yeah, I, one after you approve it, possibly, just. Is there any questions about the recommendations?
These, for the most part, are just normal change, time of year type changes for the most part. Is that correct?
And as you know, we had a few rifts going on in both certified and classified areas earlier on in the year. But as people have submitted retirement letters, we recall some of those people that were originally rifts. So these are all those adjustments that you see on for people who have retired and then people who are now being recalled into those positions.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
well, I noticed for retirements, there's significant years on some of those
Mhm.
people. And one of them I recognize as one of our secretaries from Highland. So she's been here 38 years. So I want to thank her for her service with the other people, but there's somebody else at 30 years. That's significant to stay here that long.
Absolutely. Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Mack,
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes.
And I would just say on one of the recommendations that we just approved hiring our new field service director. Her name is Amy. She comes to us from Massillon City Schools. We're very excited to have her. She's experienced and is willing to jump right in. And as a matter of fact, had some transition days approved by her current district. So she's going to be joining us here before the end of the school, a couple days a week, just to kind of get herself together and ready to go for the next school year. So we welcome Amy. She's going to be a great addition to our team.
Wonderful. Yeah, welcome aboard. All right, moving on to item 13, treasurer's consent agenda. We have item A, resolve to approve the financial reports as attached. Item B, resolve to approve the tax rate resolution as attached. Item C, resolve to approve the transfer of $10,000 from the general fund to the Blossom Hill Fieldhouse Fund per the shared use agreement with the city of Brecksville. Transfer request attached. Item D, resolve to approve the TTX Teletronics Services contract. Item E, resolve to accept donations as presented. Item F, resolve to approve the minutes from the March 23rd regular board meeting and the financial audit policy and PI committee meetings as attached. Item G, resolve to approve treasurer's consent items A through F. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Craig, you want to walk us through these items?
Sure. Let's see. Nothing too exciting in the overall picture. Again, we're still kind of tracking pretty close to where we were at the bottom line. A little bit unfavorable right now in the revenue function. Part of that's actually being driven. They've made some adjustments, and we heard about this down at the WASBO, that we were supposed to minimally be increased in compensation for the Fair School Funding Plan that passed. And of course, we happen to be one of those districts that ended up not necessarily being true. So there were some schools that were impacted from it. So that's a little bit about what's going on here in terms of the overall revenue that was originally projected when those projections came out. But now that they've really like dug into and have like they're actually continuing to modify, as you recall, they were very delayed until they started paying us correctly, and then after they paid us correctly, they had to keep pretty much almost every payment we get, they've revised, and every payment we keep getting a little bit less. So that's on the revenue front. It's not a substantial amount because our state funding is so minimal, but it's still there, and that's part of the reason behind that. Our current expenditures are actually still trending favorable in the opposite direction, which is good. So what that looks like at the end of the fiscal year right now would be a positive increase to the cash balance of $192,000. Revenues this month-to-month comparison, again, you see the large increase. That's due to our taxes they were a little bit higher this year as they came in versus last year. That's all a timing issue. This is compared to the prior period. The next one is, this is our variance from the forecast, which is the good part here, right? So that's 143,000 less, a little bit less in local tax revenue than was originally projected. From our estimates, and then our state revenue, you can see, is below the projections there at the 352. So that's where some of that's coming into play, and then we're above in all other revenue by a little bit. And some of that is comparable, but it depends. We have our estimates were not 100% with all day tuition, kindergarten, and stuff like that, as well as pay to participate fees have been well collected this year, which is good through the Pay Schools platform. On the expenditure side, again, things are looking good. We are trending, I need to make that one notch bigger, a little bit higher than last year at this time, but not anything significant, $128,000 more compared to last March, because this is the expenditures for March. And then from the prior year, we're very, very close, I guess, in terms of overall expenditures, which is actually a good thing. You see salaries are up. That's obviously from the negotiated agreements of step increases and all of that stuff, but our purchase services are trending down, as well as all of our other expenses. So that is all good news, and that's how it compares to the forecast. Again, we're seeing it all in all the other areas, as well as a little bit in salaries and benefits. So we've definitely forecasted those pretty accurately as we moved through. So again, all looks pretty good, and again, according to the forecast, we are doing well. The tax rate resolution is, this is normal to be done usually in February or March of each year. Unfortunately, Cuyahoga County actually requested a extension. I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but they got an extension from the Department of Taxation. So this is our tax rate resolution setting the rates. I've noted here that there is a slight reduction from 2.36 to 2.20 as it relates to the bond levy that was passed in 2018 and subsequently was refunded in 2019. So that is a minimal decrease, but that was planned, but now it's actually taking effect. The transfer request is the establishment of the fund we created last month, which was that 013 fund. We've already received the $10,000 contribution from the city. So this will officially transfer those funds tomorrow into that fund as well. So we'll start off next fiscal year with $20,000 in the 013 fund. This, I don't know why this is an executive consent, but I will move that out also here. But this is a E-rate project for, actually this is cabling, by the way. So it's cabling at the high school. So this is a 40% reimbursement that is included for this contract, which again, I will move here shortly. And then these are the donations we received this month, and then the minutes, which are a little bit more than usual, but those are the policy, the financial audit, and the PI committee meeting minutes. And then just for everyone else's knowledge as well, because we were kind of in limbo with this, I did create these as agendas and minutes in board docs, just so that they're stored in the online platform as well, just to kind of keep things all in one place, because I don't want to lose like 3 pieces of paper for the next however many years. It's easier to just keep it all in here. So that's it. Are there any questions?
Craig, I just have 2 questions regarding the first for item C, the transfer request. This is the fund that was created is a mutually contributed fund between the district and the city to support the maintenance of the shared spaces at the new elementary school, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then secondly, the contract with TTX and the E-rate funding, is what portion of that contract is what is the word?
Reimbursed.
Reimbursed by
Reimbursed.
E-rate. Thank you.
We are a 40% district. So
So
of the total cost, we would get 40% back
back.
after
Okay.
we've expended the total amount of the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just to clarify item B on the tax rate resolution. So this adjustment in millage, what people pay is going to stay the same, in essence, like the dollar amount, because when you have tax issues, whether it's a bond issue or it's a levy, the total dollar amount that it generates stays the same. And as people's property valuations fluctuate, millage is adjusted to make sure that the amount being paid is the same. Is that
So
what this represents?
I don't believe, but I will double check to follow up. And the reason why is because it was 2.36 because originally of the high school bond that was falling off.
Okay.
So I do believe that this would be it's going to be mostly negligible in terms of what's that 0.16. So most people won't see that, especially because values have gone up on their houses. So their tax bill will be increasing, even though there's a decreasing factor here. But I believe that's what that is from. It's because it's now transitioning to the new building bond amount, which was 2.2.
Okay. And just for background for people who are dialing in. So the bond issue that was passed, I don't know, was it 30 years ago, 25, 28 maybe, it was to fund the high school. That bond issue was being retired, and the bond issue for the new elementary school was kind of interwoven with that one. So it was kind of like a renewal, but technically not a renewal. So this millage change it probably relates to the retirement of the first bond, which was to fund the high school. And then we just have the new bond, which is to fund the new elementary school. But at the end of the day, people's taxes, it should be a negligible difference in their tax bill.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. I'm going to pulverize it because I'm speaking finance.
Uh-oh.
But what's happening at the state level with as far as us being able to dispute businesses' taxes?
So I will have
Meetings and notices now that go through?
It did. So House Bill 126 did get the governor's signature. I'm planning to talk more in detail about that at the May meeting, just because we've been kind of just waiting to see what happens in this final, in the final bill and make sure that it did get, some people were pushing to have a veto action and that was all happening like live while I was the WASBO. They were trying to push and lobby to get the governor to veto the bill, which may have been overturned anyways, but working with it's going to be some impact to our district because we do occasionally file these, and the way that they wrote it, it has to now be over $500,000 of value, and then there's this lack of notice to the school districts. Whereas the way it currently stands is that the county auditor has to notify us if someone has said, hey, we want to file to have a lower value. Now they don't do that. So I'm working with Jim Patrick at Fisher and Phillips, who does all of our property tax issues. And we're going to put together some information, for the board's knowledge, but also to set up a schedule. I think, Ellen, you had reached out as well to say, we can reach out to them to say, hey, have you received any complaints? So putting in place some procedures so that we don't just get blindsided and not know what's going on, that either I'm going to be reaching out or that'll be part of what legal does for us, depending on what they put together. And then he's also going to do a summary of what our potential impact will be at a district level based on what he's seen over the last several years in terms of financially speaking of what that would look like for us. But it definitely is not necessarily a great thing for us. We don't file residential, and that does prohibit that as well, but we don't file against residential, but it will have an effect on our commercial issues.
What was the intention? What was the intention of doing this? Because why wouldn't you want us to receive notice? So there obviously was some drive.
Well, so I guess there's different parts. I was questioning that as well because, it does seem to be, there are some certain legislators that are trying to make things like pro-business, which is good, but at the same time, they're thinking that this is going to help if they can have less value, which then I don't think they're realizing that can have an impact on the funding level of their local schools, which then also dictates what the community is like, right? There's also there's a push going out right now to change the way that millage is presented on ballots, because they're saying it's confusing the way it is. But what they're actually trying to propose is more confusing and not actually even accurate. So there's a lot of different things going on, but I did hear, at least when I talked with Jim Patrick was that there's different parts of the state as well that are there are school districts that are extremely aggressive. We don't take an aggressive approach, but there's school districts out there that have taken a very aggressive approach. And I'm assuming in the district of where that representative who created the bill was from, and that's where it started to get legs. I guess this has also been trying to be a push for a long time, and now it finally has happened.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
So, and yeah, just to clarify then too. So what we're talking about is residential and commercial property within your district, is taxed, and that's a huge part of the funding for school districts. And prior to this legislation, if a homeowner or a business felt that their property was overvalued, they could file a complaint to have it reduced. The school districts had the right to also challenge it and say, well, no, we think the valuation is correct. What you're saying is in our district, we never challenged residential complaints. So any homeowner that complained to say that the valuation should be reduced, there was never any retroaction from the school districts challenging, saying, no, we do think it is. But on commercial property, we would look to say, hey, if it's being challenged, we would like to present a case saying that the valuation should be where it's at or should be higher. And what this bill is saying is it's saying school districts cannot challenge the valuation of residential property, which doesn't affect us at all because we weren't doing that at all. But it also said you can challenge commercial property, but there are constraints on doing that. And one of them is that you're not going to get notification when somebody filed a complaint saying we want to lower it. So you have to go find it out on your own. And there's some other elements of it. So this is where it could have an impact, and valuations that are reduced without any type of a challenge from our district, if there's enough of them, they could reduce the revenue that the district is getting, which would eventually lead us back onto a ballot sooner to the taxpayers to say,
well, and that's part of the concern is that I don't think a lot of people understand that shift is just going to affect the residential and the taxpayers. So the businesses, while it's good that they benefit because we need businesses, at the same time, it's going to shift the burden to the taxpayers in a negative way. So I'm not sure everyone really understands that point of it, but it's definitely true, especially this district does not have emergency levies, but emergency levies are a guaranteed amount. So if they keep decreasing value, they're going to have to raise the residential values and tax rates to get that dollar amount in to guarantee that funding, which then may irritate the taxpayers, and then they may not even vote for an emergency renewal as it comes up. So it could be devastating. I don't know. And again, we'll do the financial analysis to see what it would affect us in terms of the commercial side of things, just to kind of put that all in perspective in May.
Did that come out of nowhere? Because I felt like it did. I didn't see anything like on the radar of this.
The bill passing?
Yeah, the bill even.
Oh, no, it's been around for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's been months and months that it was in committee forever, and then it got all the redistricting stuff with the maps.
I was looking
has
at the
pushed
funding
it.
and then this.
Yeah, no, it's been around. It kind of got pushed, and then at the last minute, it flew kind of through pretty quick. They were in conference committee because the House and the Senate couldn't agree, and they were in conference committee, I think, for like an hour or two, and came out, and we're ready. And then it was voted in the same day, Senate, House, and then it went to the governor's office quick.
It was a topic of conversation at the annual meeting back in November.
Yeah.
Actually, the final version that became law actually is a little tamer.
It is a little tamer.
Originally, the original bill said you couldn't challenge at
Anything.
all. So the original draft of the legislation said you couldn't challenge residential or commercial. And so the final came out saying you can't challenge residential, which again doesn't impact us because we didn't do that anyway. But it did create caveats for you to challenge commercial. So there still is some opportunity, but there are limits too. So, and again, this is the kind of thing that from an impact on revenue, this is a long-term potential reduction in revenue depending on how this plays out. So this isn't the kind of thing that tomorrow it's going to start impacting our revenue stream, right? This is going to be are there commercial properties within our district who challenge their valuations that we either don't find out about, or we find out about them and they don't conform to the constraints, and we're not able to challenge, and then those valuations get lower, which eventually can lower the revenue stream into the district and affect our forecast and finances. So anyway, yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Next month, maybe, but.
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Mack, Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Item 14, closing items, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for May 25th at 7 p.m. Item B is adjournment, resolved to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Mack. Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Have